Hello friends! Today I will be teaching you Truco, a traditional Argentinian card game that I've really been enjoying recently. So Truco is a trick-taking card game like hearts or spades, and it features bluffing and secret message passing. Some of the things that I really like about it is there's really small hands, there's not a lot of cards. The gameplay is fast, and you don't need to remember all the cards that have been played. So the gameplay is like pretty simple, but it's all of the sort of social elements that make it really, really fun. I have met two Argentinians and I asked them if they knew Truco, and they both said basically like, of course I know Truco, everyone knows Truco. So this is something where, you know, if you find yourself in Argentina and you can play Truco, this could be like a really, really cool experience for you. But in general, I think it's just a good game that more people should know. So I'm gonna record a video, this video, about sort of teaching you kind of like the basic stuff that you need. This is just one way to play actually. There's a few variations, but I'm just gonna focus on one specific set of rules. I'm gonna teach the simplest version that still feels like a complete game. And I'm not gonna touch on like strategy or conventions and banter and things like that, but there's tons of resources and like sort of emergent things that can happen with the people that you play with. One important note is that this game is obviously typically played in Spanish. It's got a Spanish deck and is usually played speaking entirely in Spanish. For simplicity for learning, I'm gonna teach it as much in English as possible, except for certain words that actually have like a specific meaning in the game, where speaking them has a specific meaning, in which case we'll use the Spanish words, because that's like part of the game. So first off, we're going to talk through the order of the cards. This is slightly unfortunate that this is such a first thing you've got to learn kind of part of it, but just stick with me and we'll get through it. And I think this part is actually pretty fun. So, hey Ben, why don't you bring the camera to a better shot to show all the cards?
Will do.
All right, so this is, as I said, a Spanish deck. It features 4 suits. You've got coins, cups, clubs, and swords. And so these 4 cards right here, these are Las Cartas Bravas. These are the 4 best cards in the deck. So don't worry about the rest of the order for now. Just think of these 4 cards as the top one. So this is the Ace of Swords, the one big flamboyant sword. This is the best card in the game. This card is strictly better than the second best card in the game, which is the Ace of Clubs, the one big hefty club. And then you have the 7 of Swords, followed by the 7 of Coins. So you can sort of think of this as like the 2 gigantic weapons, the more sophisticated one first. And then I think of this as sort of like the treasury, the sort of largest collection of fancy swords and fancy gold coins. So these 4 cards together will almost certainly win any trick that you play. And if you run into one of the other ones, that's a big dramatic moment, but usually you can sort of rely on these for one trick. After that, you have the 3s, the 2s, and then the other 2 1s. So within each one of these are all the same rank. So, you know, a 3 of coins and a 3 of swords would actually be a tie for a trick. And then the 3s are better than the 2s, which are better than these sort of false aces, because if you forget that these are the 2 good ones, then you might accidentally play these. So you have, but these are all generally pretty good. So you can generally rely on cards in here to likely win a trick. Beneath that is the face cards. So you have your 12, 11, and 10. And so same as here, you know, the order, the suits don't make any difference, but you know, the 12s are better than the 11s, better than the 10s. These are sort of middling cards. They might occasionally win, you know, the final trick, which will make more sense later. But generally speaking, these are like not particularly good cards. And then everything below that, the 7s, the other 2 7s, the 6s, the 5s, and the 4s are trash and are very unlikely to win any trick. All right, so we are now going to do a quick little game where we're going to decide which card is higher. You're welcome, obviously, to skip back in the video to where you had a nice sort of laid out version of all of the cards. You know, if you can make it through the whole deck of this, then you basically got this part down. All right. So the ace of clubs, second best card in the game, beats the 2, which is still a pretty good card. Here the 3 of cups is a very good card, and it beats this sort of middling face card over here. Here we go, the 3 of coins is quite good, but here we've got the best card in the game, the ace of swords. 2 3s, that's a tie. The 2 is a quite good card, and it beats the middling face card. This middling face card beats this absolute trash 4, worst card in the game. Once again, the middling face card beats the 4. We've got a face card beating another face card, so the highest one wins. Here we've got the 2, which is quite good, beating the face card. We've got a tie on the 6s. We've got this false ace, so this is not a top 2 card, but it's still better than all the face cards. A draw on the 11s. Trash 7 beats the trash 4. Note that this is not one of the amazing 7s. This is one of the false 7s. The face card beats the other trash false 7. Here we have one of the really good 7s. This is the 4th highest card in the game, the 7 of coins, and that beats this middling face card. Here we have 2 cards that look very similar but are extremely different. The 7 of swords is the 3rd best card in the game, and the 6 of swords is trash. Here, trash beats trash. This is the other false ace, so not amazing, but still better than all the face cards and all the trash, which beats the trash. Trash beats slightly trashier trash. And finally, the 2, which is pretty good, beats the trash. All right, so now we're gonna play through a hand. So Truco is a partnership game. It's always played 2v2, and you play with your partner across from you. So I would be playing with a player in this seat, and these 2 players would be a partnership. The play goes counterclockwise to the right, and play always starts with the player to the dealer's right, and the dealer goes last. Another interesting thing about the play of the game is that the cards are played face up and left out on the table. So we'll do a quick sort of demonstration of that. So if we have hands, the hands are only 3 cards, which is really nice. Then if this player plays, you play like this and like this. These hands are obviously up and secret. But you play like this, and then the winner of this trick, so in this example, this player plays the highest card, being the 7 of coins, the 4th highest card in the game. Then they lead the next trick, and they just place the card right here. And so because of that, you can always see the result of all the previous tricks. And you don't have to remember sort of what was played ahead of time, which is very helpful. Since there's 3 cards, you play to the winner of whichever team wins 2 of the 3 tricks. And so if you've played 2 tricks and one team has already won both tricks, then the hand just ends right there. The one sort of interesting wrinkle here is in the case of a tie. So like, let's say that this first trick right here, like it played out like this. So this first trick, we have here, this player leads the 3, trash, trash, and then I play the 3. This is a tie. And this means that whoever wins the first trick that is won takes the hand. So whoever wins the second trick wins, but of course if that one is tied, then whoever wins the third trick wins. If the tie happens later, for example, on the last trick, this happens often, you might have a situation where the tie happens at the end, and we've won a trick and they've won a trick, and then the tie happens on the third one, then the winning team is the team who won that first trick, who won that earliest trick. So winning the first trick has like a bit of a premium. Okay, so that seems pretty simple. But now we're going to sort of introduce kind of like the core, like interesting part of Truco, which is a sort of betting and bluffing element. So let's return all of the cards, and let's say that, so these are all secret in your hand, like this. Let's say this first player they play their 3, and this player plays the 7, this player plays this 7, and it comes to me, and I think to myself, all right, we've got this trick 1, and I'm also holding on to this 3, and he's already burned this 3. So I think it's pretty likely that we're going to win this hand. So instead of playing, I can say Truco, which is essentially a challenge to the other team. I'm saying, I think we have this hand won, and the other team can either sort of accept, fold, essentially, by saying no quiero, which is Spanish for I don't want this. Or they can say quiero, I want this, which will continue play, but now this hand is worth 2 points. So let's say that, they don't believe me, and they say quiero. So now suddenly this hand, whoever wins this hand gets 2 points. And so I play this. The winner of this first trick leads the second trick here. And now let's say that this player is feeling quite confident, or maybe they're not feeling confident, but they sense a lack of confidence on our part. And they can choose to raise it to 3 points, and they do that by saying retruco, in which case we then need to respond and either say quiero or no quiero. There's also a 4th level after retruco called vale cuatro, and it doesn't go higher than that. So you can go truco, retruco, vale cuatro, and at each stage, the opponent has to accept. One thing to note is that the same team can't initiate a bet, like 2 bets in a row. Like if we said truco first and they accept, we can't just say retruco and raise, like the other team needs to go back and forth. So in order to get to that retruco stage, both teams need to sort of like pull this move. So of course this can be used either when you think you've basically got it in the bag, in which case you are sort of hoping you can get an extra point off of the other team not believing you, or it can be used as a bluff, where you think you've actually lost, but you sense some weakness in the other team, and you're hoping to get them to fold and get a cheeky point. Let's see. Okay, so that's sort of like the basic game of Truco with Truco. So another really fun element that causes a lot of the sort of joy and mirth of this game is this idea of passing signals. So Truco is a game, unlike a lot of other trick-taking games, where you actually can communicate openly at the table. Like you can literally just ask your partner, like should I try to win this trick? Like, what do you have? Do you think you have a winner here? That's kind of unusual. You can't do that in a lot of trick-taking games, but in this one you can. And in addition, you can pass surreptitious signals, but you have to do it from a specific set, because otherwise there'd be this huge advantage if one partnership kind of had a set of signals worked out and the other people didn't know what it was. So you essentially need to pass the signals to your partner while your opponents are not paying enough attention to catch you doing it. I'm going to teach you a sort of a common set of signals for this, but this varies regionally and you can just sort of invent your own, as long as all 4 players are in agreement on what the set is. The set is, if you have the Ace of Swords, the best card in the game, you do a raise your eyebrow. If you have the Ace of Clubs, the second best card in the game, it's a wink. If you have one of those 2 really good 7s, the 7 of Swords or the 7 of Coins, you sort of like move your mouth to the side like this. If you have any 3, it's you bite your lower lip. If you have any 2, it's like a sort of a pursed lips, like kissy face. And then if you have like trash, like if you just have like really bad cards, you do sort of like a slow blink, like an eye roll. And that's it. And you can sort of make up signals for other contexts, but that's kind of the basic set. Of course, sometimes you'll be in a situation where passing the signals to your partner is not very helpful, or where sending false signals to mislead your opponents is a good idea. And so that's all for you to figure out in your Truco adventures. All right, so there's one other sort of like big chunk of learning in this game, which might seem a bit arbitrary at first, but it actually adds like a really interesting sort of like element of like depth to the game and strategy, and also sort of makes more hands playable in more ways, which is very helpful. So this is called Envido. And essentially, Envido is played, it's sort of an optional game that happens during the playing of the very first trick of the game. So let's sort of back up here. Let's get some good examples. So let's see, this is a good example. That's a good example. Actually, no, this is already a great example. We do one of 3 different suits. Perfect. All right. So for Envido, every hand has like an Envido score. And the idea is that when you play Envido, the player with the highest Envido score wins. And that Envido score is calculated as follows. So basically you're looking for 2 cards of the same suit among the 3 cards in your hand. If you have 3 totally different suits, you have like a pretty low Envido score and it's generally not gonna play. So like over here, you've got like swords, cups, and clubs. And so in this situation, you basically pick the card with the highest individual score, and that's your score. So the face cards are 0. But these 2 are just whatever they are. So in this case, this person's Envido score is 6, because the 10s, 11, and 12s are all 0. In this situation where you have 2 cards of the same suit, or 3 cards, you take the 2 highest numbers there, and you add them together plus 20, which basically makes it better than any hand you can get without 2 of the same suit. So in this case, we would have 29. Over here, this guy this is the best possible Envido score. So a 6 and a 7 plus 20 is 33. So this is an amazing score. And over here, we have an example of like a score where you have the sort of 5 and then the 7 of coins, which is notable because most of the time in Envido, the good cards are actually trash cards in the normal play of the tricks. But there's a couple exceptions to that, which is the 7 of swords and the 7 of coins. And so somebody's Envido score could sort of give you an indication that they hold one of those 2 cards. So the way this works is anytime before you play your first card, and this is, you generally do it, right before you play that first card, you can say Envido. And this will sort of trigger this bidding session of the game of Envido. So let's say that this person wouldn't say Envido, they would play a card, but this person's looking at this amazing Envido score right here, 32, and they're gonna say Envido. And so now this team needs to decide whether they are going to accept or decline. And similar with Truco, they say quiero or no quiero to do that. But in Envido, there is an additional thing you can do where you can re-raise, but you have to do it right then. So unlike in Truco, where you have to where you accept and then you can sort of do it later, we're gonna say the numbers, so you have to get all the bidding out of the way immediately. So this player can look at their absolutely rock solid best Envido hand right here, and they can just say Envido back at them. And in that situation, the bidding comes back to us. So the way the scoring works is if the initial Envido is declined, then the team that says Envido, they get 1 point. And if it's accepted, you play Envido for 2 points. And then every additional raise is 2 more points added to that. So let's say that this player says Envido, basically saying, I'm betting 2. This player says Envido back, saying like raise to 4. And then we can either accept, in which case we play for 4, or we can decline, in which case they just get 2 points, or we can raise back. So in this situation, maybe we'll say, maybe they have it, let's say quiero and accept. So now we have to read out the cards, or declare our Envido score. So this player would look down and they would say, so it starts to the right of the dealer, just same as with the play of tricks. This player would look down and they would say 6. which is not very good. This player would say 22. And then this player would say, 32. This is 32. 20 plus 7 plus 5. And then this player would say 33. And then when it comes to me, I can't beat this score, so I actually can skip saying it. I can say son buenas, which means that's good, and you don't necessarily have to say that in Spanish. But you can basically decline to say your number if your number is not going to beat the current winning number. In which case, this team would immediately get 4 points. One thing to note is that during this part of the game, you're never showing your cards. Like you're still keeping them secret, but you can't lie. Like this is not a situation where you can bluff. This is not a situation where you can mislead. You have to be truthful about your score. And then as the trick plays out, like if the 2 cards that compose your winning and veto score don't come out, like let's say that like you've played these 2 cards and then the hand ends for whatever reason, you do have to kind of flash that other card so that you can kind of like show the table that like you actually did have that in veto score. All right, so finally, just a quick note about scoring. So this game is played to 30 points. You can keep track of this however you want. One sort of traditional easy way to do it is you make little boxes with like 1, 2, 3, 4, and then a 5 slash down the diagonal. And that's just, so you make 6 boxes of that. And that's one way to play it. And I believe that is it. That's how you play Truco. There's a few extra sort of like more complicated sort of bidding rules and stuff you can get into, and lots of sort of traditions and fun things. But I hope this guide was helpful to kind of like give you a baseline to learn the order of the cards and the order of play so that you can sort of jump into a game and feel like you've had as much preparation as you prefer to have for things like this. So thank you. And next time we'll pick another obscure foreign card game to learn about. So I'll catch you then. Hello, me again, with a couple of quick follow-up clarifications on the in veto rules that I missed in the initial video. So one thing to remember is that in veto is always played during the first trick. So you have to say it before you play your particular card. But sometimes someone calls Truco during the first trick as well, before you've had a chance to play, and you might want to call in veto. And so in that situation, you might have like this. So this first player plays their card, and then my partner over here says Truco. In this situation, the other team, before they respond to the Truco, can call in veto, and that essentially puts the Truco like on pause. And we resolve the whole in veto first before Truco happens. So this person calls Truco, this player calls in veto, and then we go through the whole sequence of in veto. So, we have to decide whether to accept it or not, we can raise it back, whatever, and then we sort of call out our numbers, and as soon as that's resolved, then we play Truco. Another sort of important note about the about the in veto hand scoring is, let's say you have a situation like this, where you have 2 cards of the same suit, but one of them is a face card. And as I mentioned before, the face cards are actually worth 0 in veto, but they still count for creating this pair that gives you that 20 points. So in this situation, this is actually worth 22 points. And if this was a king, if this was a 12 or an 11, it would still be 22 points. The face card is worth 0, but it still counts to make the pair. And sometimes, like in a situation where you have, a face card and a 7, 27 is a pretty decent in veto score, so that sometimes is worth playing. And I believe that is it. If not, I'll record another one of these in just a second.